How to Love According to Rumi. This is a TED Talk by Stephanie Honchell Smith. I don't know how long this has been out, but I will link this in the description, and I wanted to go over it because I thought it was simply a beautiful video to react to concerning love and the beloved, etc., etc. A lot of you know who Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi is, mashallah. He's probably the most well-known Sufi Islamic poet to date. Shams, also Hafiz, are some other well-known ones, but I wanted to cover this because I thought it was a beautiful representation of some of his work and some of the things that he taught and believed. And so let's get right into this. Before we get started, brothers and sisters, head over to the channel, hit the like and the subscribe button, join channel membership, share this content across your platforms, brothers and sisters, because there may be somebody out there that just really needs to hear it. Insh'Allah. Please forgive me, I'm a little bit under the weather right now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove some of my sins. Ameen. So without further ado, let's get right into this. Bismillah. A man far from love's grasp is like a bird without wings. MashaAllah.
A candle is made to become entirely flame. In that annihilating moment, it has no shadow. According to legend, the renowned scholar Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi was giving a lecture when an older, disheveled man approached and asked him the meaning of his academic books. Rumi didn't know it yet, but this question and this man would change his life. Annoyed at the interruption, Rumi snapped, "They are something that you do not understand." Suddenly, the books caught fire. The man looked back at the astounded Rumi and simply replied, "You couldn't possibly understand." The mysterious figure was Shams of Tabriz, a charismatic Sufi mystic who would transform Rumi's worldview. Rumi, inspired by Shams's teachings, would go on to become one of the world's most celebrated poets and mystical philosophers, whose cultural legacy looms large across Turkey and the Persian-speaking world. Rumi was born in 1207 near the Afghan city of Balkh, and as a
shout out to Afghanistan, mashallah. Another wonderful reason to love Afghanistan, the whole area. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum to all you brothers and sisters from Afghanistan. Big love.
Child, emigrated to Anatolia, where his father, a preacher and mystic, hoped to secure a more prestigious position. By the time of Shams's arrival, Rumi was a well-respected scholar of Islamic law in the town of Konya. While he had been exposed to Sufism, the mystical path within Islam, which focuses on experiencing God's love, he'd shown little interest in it. But this changed in his late 30s, when Shams came into his life. The academic study of law and theology was no longer Rumi's central focus. Rather, he saw them as candles guiding the way towards his ultimate goal, the reunification of his soul with God through the experience of divine love. He wrote of this tension in his native Persian. Love resides not in learning, not in knowledge, not in pages and books. Wherever the debates of men may lead, that is not the lover's path. While Sufism had been part of Islamic observance for centuries, the practices of some Sufis, from ecstatic dancing to composing poetry, were looked down upon by conservative religious elites. As Rumi increasingly embraced Sufism under Shams's influence, many of his earlier followers disapproved. When Shams suddenly disappeared, suspicions arose that he'd been murdered. Rumi expressed his devastation through poetry. He bathed us like a candle in his light. In thin air vanished, left us. Rather than turning away from Sufism, Rumi became more devoted, participating in ritualized dancing and preaching the religion of love through lectures, poetry, and prose. And while Shams would never return, Rumi continued to share his teachings, seeing himself as the moon, reflecting the light of Shams's sun. While in his mystical states, he composed the Divan-i-Shams, a sprawling collection of lyrical poems that included many of the sayings for which he is famous today. The work expresses intense feelings of love and longing, not only for his vanished mentor, but for the divine creator. Over time, Rumi's poetry matured. He no longer saw himself as a reflection of Shams, but as a beacon of light on his own. In his early 50s, Rumi wrote Masnavi, which shifts from ecstatic expressions of divine love to verses that guide others to discover it for themselves. The poems are complex and layered, incorporating ideas, stories, and quotes from Islamic religious texts, Arabic and Persian literature, and earlier Sufi writings and poetry. In one story, he invokes the well-known characters of Layla and the love-crazed Majnun. In Rumi's version, the king, hearing Majnun's musings on Layla's unsurpassed beauty, demands to see her. But when Layla arrives, he's confused, as her beauty pales in comparison to Majnun's praises. To this, Layla replies, "I am Layla. The problem is you are not Majnun." For Rumi, experiencing love meant opening his heart to all of God's creation, looking at everything and everyone, like Majnun gazing upon Layla. In this way, he saw romantic love as an expression, on a smaller scale, of divine love. Following Rumi's death, the Mevlevi Sufi order was established around his teachings and still exists in Turkey today. His poems and other writings were copied and dispersed across the Islamic world, inspiring and shaping Persian poetry before being introduced to the West in the 19th century. For generations, his works have been read and reread, translated and reinterpreted, drawing admirers from around the world. While Rumi's words reflect his specific historical context and Islamic worldview, for many, his message feels universal. If you have lost heart in the path of love, flee to me without delay. I am a fortress, invincible. Though scientists, psychologists, and philosophers have countless theories on why we love, poets are particularly adept at capturing the experience. Plumb the depths.
MashaAllah. Okay, I'm going to cut it off right there. That's such a beautiful video and a representation. A really condensed version of Rumi and where he was born, his meeting with Shams, and his parting with Shams, his separation from Shams, and how that inspired him, and all of his poetry and writings from there on. Like she said, up until his early 50s, whenever he started to write more in depth about how to lead others to the understanding of the divine love of the beloved, mashallah. So, you know, a lot of you brothers and sisters out there are anti-Rumi, anti-Sufism, anti-spiritualism in general, and you have that right to be. You know, there's a time and a place for everything, and you know, we're all along our spiritual path, different stages along our spiritual path at different times. Alhamdulillah, Allah knows best. My encouragement to everybody is to dig deeper into love and the experience of love, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that experience of love, whether it's romantic love, love of the beauty in the world, love of some of Allah's expressions of in the beauty of the world, you know, whether it's, you know, the bees that carry the nectar and the honey, you know, the sunset, the sunrise, the way the dew falls across the flowers, whatever it might be. You know, the main thing, the most important thing, is to stop for a minute and take in and soak in that experience of life and the processes that are taking place right in front of us because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're effortless. You know, how does a seed know to grow into a tree? You know, this is the divine love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that makes this happen. It makes it a reality. You know, all of these things in nature that happen are because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine love. And I encourage each and every one of us to get lost in that divine love. You know, there's a time and a place for rules and regulations, and for, you know, making sure that you're keeping your ship running, so to speak. But there's also a time and a place for love. And you really should take a few minutes sometimes to just appreciate the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in the various expressions in nature and in human connection, human relationships that we have, that are representations of Allah's divine love. So, anyway, brothers and sisters, that's all I've got. Be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And remember, there's one God and only one God, and He alone is worthy of worship.